Ready to lace up for a deep dive into the world of sneakers and one man's crazy idea that turned into a global empire.
Sounds like a journey I'm ready to take.
Well then, grab your metaphorical running shoes because we're about to crack open Shoe Dog.
Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, right? The founder of Nike.
The one and only. It's his personal story, his memoir of how Nike went from zero to swoosh, and it's not your typical business book.
It's raw, right? I've heard it's like a behind-the-scenes look at the struggles and the triumphs of building a brand from scratch.
Exactly. And it all starts with Knight's crazy idea, this driving force that pushed him forward.
But it's more than just about winning, isn't it? There's this underlying fear of losing, this sense of urgency that permeates the entire book.
It's like he was running from something, always striving for something more.
To really understand that drive, you have to go back to his roots.
Back to his days as a runner.
Yeah, he ran track at the University of Oregon. He was completely immersed in this world of competition. He even talks about that split second before victory or defeat, that feeling of pure exhilaration.
Wow, so he was hooked on the adrenaline.
Hooked on that feeling. And he wanted to build his life around it.
That's where the seeds of Nike were sown, huh?
You could say that. Now, after college, Knight embarks on this soul-searching trip around the world.
This is where he ends up in that bombed-out building in Tokyo, right?
You got it. It's
Yeah.
such a vivid scene. You could practically feel the grit and the determination just oozing off the pages. It's like a testament to his resilience, his ability to adapt to anything.
Hold on, a bombed-out building. That's intense.
It really sets the stage for his character, doesn't it? This guy's not afraid of a challenge.
So it's during this trip that he stumbles upon tiger shoes.
Yeah, made by this company called Onitsuka Kolo in Japan. Knight was blown away by the quality. He sees an opportunity.
The business brain starts whirring. He spots a gap in the market, right?
It's more than just spotting a gap. It's like a light bulb goes off. This crazy idea hits him. He's going to import these shoes to the U.S.
So he's just gonna, start selling shoes out of his suitcase?
Well, he starts by pitching this idea to a group of ex-GIs in Tokyo who are running this magazine called Importer.
Ah, so this chance encounter turns into a pivotal moment.
Exactly. They give him some invaluable advice about how to navigate the Japanese business world, emphasizing patience and understanding.
Understanding what?
Their culture. Their subtle ways of communication.
I can almost picture a young Knight soaking it all in.
Like a sponge. Armed with this newfound knowledge, he travels to Kobe and meets with Onitsuka executives.
Talk about a leap of faith.
And you know what? He manages to secure a deal to become the distributor for Tiger shoes in the U.S.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's the move that would lay the foundation for Nike.
So this is before Nike, right? Before the swoosh.
No Blue Ribbon Sports, no Nike, nothing. He's operating out of his parents' house.
No way. Selling shoes out of the trunk of his car?
You got it. The ultimate startup story. Pure hustle, fueled by belief in this product, and a vision that, honestly, most people probably wouldn't have understood.
Yeah, you gotta have a certain level of crazy to pull that off. But I'm guessing it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
You're right. It was far from easy. Knight constantly faced financial pressure. He got rejected by banks. He even faced skepticism from his own family.
Oh, I bet that was tough. So how did he power through all that?
Grit and resourcefulness.
Yeah.
And, his accounting background.
Accounting? I thought we were talking about sneakers.
I know, right? But those accounting skills actually become his secret weapon.
How does accounting come into play when you're selling shoes?
Understanding cash flow, managing inventory, making tough financial decisions, those skills, combined with his sheer determination, kept him afloat during those crucial early years.
It's fascinating how seemingly unrelated skills can become assets in unexpected ways. It's not just about having a great idea. It's about knowing how to manage the nuts and bolts of a business.
You hit the nail on the head. And amidst all this whirlwind of building a business, Knight finds time to fall in love and get married.
Wait, really? While he's hustling shoes out of his car?
It's a whirlwind romance. He meets his future wife, Kenny, teaching accounting at Portland State University. They meet, fall in love, get engaged, and married, all within a year.
Wow. Talk about a multitasker. But this is also where he starts to build his core team, right?
You got it. He brings Penny on board to help with the books. He hires Jeff Johnson, a former running rival, to handle sales. And then he recruits Bob Whittle, a paraplegic veteran, to manage finances.
That's an interesting mix of personalities. Was it smooth sailing with this new team in place?
Not quite. These key additions bring a whole new dynamic to the company, but they're still heavily reliant on Onitsuka. And as you'll see, that turns into a double-edged sword.
How so?
Tugger shoes are gaining popularity, but the relationship with Onitsuka becomes increasingly strained. Knight constantly deals with production delays, incorrect shipments, broken promises. Imagine that frustration.
That's got to be a nightmare for a young company trying to find its footing. How did Knight handle that pressure?
It forced him to become even more resourceful, more strategic. He learns to navigate the global supply chain, deal with difficult personalities, and find creative solutions to problems that, honestly, could have easily sunk the company.
So he's evolving into a problem solver, a strategist, a negotiator.
Exactly. And all those earlier experiences, the financial struggles, the rejections, they all paid off because he had learned to think on his feet and make tough decisions under pressure.
It's like those challenges were shaping him into the leader he needed to become.
Absolutely. And as those struggles with Onitsuka escalate, Knight starts to realize that he needs to break free.
He needs to create his own brand.
He needs control over his own destiny. And this is where the idea of Nike begins to take shape.
Ah, so this is where the swoosh comes into play. The birth of Nike.
Hold on, not quite yet. There's a lot more ground to cover before we get to that swoosh. There's still a small operation, facing an uphill battle against the big guys like Adidas.
Okay, I'm hooked. What happens next?
All right, so we've got this David and Goliath situation brewing. They're ready to break free from Onitsuka. But how do you even begin to build a brand that can compete with giants like Adidas?
Yeah. Well, first you need a name. And that name came to Jeff Johnson in a dream. Nike, the Greek goddess of victory.
Oh, wow. Really? A dream?
Yeah, it's a pretty epic origin story. Knight wasn't immediately sold on the name, though.
I can imagine. There's a lot riding on a name, especially when you're going up against established giants. What was it about Nike that eventually won him over?
It eventually grew on him. You can almost sense his hesitation in the book, though. Like, he's aware of the massive risk involved in starting from scratch.
Absolutely. But they needed something to set them apart. What was their edge? How did they plan to stand out against the big guys?
Knight knew they needed something revolutionary, something that would capture people's attention.
Was it the shoes themselves?
It was. And it wasn't. This is where Bill Bowerman comes in. He was obsessed with shoe design, always tinkering, trying to improve performance.
So Bowerman's the brains behind the innovation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where the waffle sole comes into play.
Ah, yes. The iconic waffle sole.
The sole was literally born in Bowerman's kitchen.
Wait, what?
He used his wife's waffle iron to create a lightweight and durable sole with superior traction.
No way. That's incredible. I always heard that story, but I never knew if it was true.
It's the stuff of legends. That's innovation right there. Thinking outside the box, using what you have to create something groundbreaking.
So it's not just about the product itself, it's about the story behind it.
Exactly. And Knight understood that. He knew they needed a story that would capture the spirit of Nike, the drive to push limits, the relentless pursuit of greatness.
And that's how they landed on "There is no finish line."
That was their first major ad campaign. It perfectly captured their ethos. It wasn't just about selling shoes. It was about inspiring athletes, about pushing boundaries, about redefining what's possible.
It's a powerful message. It resonates way beyond just athletics. It speaks to that universal desire to achieve something more.
Absolutely. They weren't just selling shoes. They were selling a feeling, an aspiration.
Pure marketing genius. But I'm guessing it wasn't all smooth sailing from there. They still had to face the realities of building a brand, right?
You're right. Building a brand takes more than just great slogans. They faced near bankruptcy, legal battles,
Yeah.
even a run-in with the FBI over import regulations.
Whoa, hold on. A run-in with the FBI. Now that's a story I need to hear more about.
It was a wild time. It speaks to the sheer tenacity of Knight and his team. They were constantly navigating these challenges, and each hurdle they overcame, it just seemed to make them more resilient.
It's like those challenges were forging them into a stronger company.
It's a great analogy. And amidst those external pressures, there were internal ones too. Knight really wrestled with the decision of whether to take Nike public.
I can imagine that's a huge decision for any company, especially one built on such a specific ethos. Bringing in outside investors can really change things.
He was hesitant, worried it would change the company's culture and make them beholden to shareholders.
I get it. They built this incredible thing from the ground up, and now they had to decide whether to share that with the world.
So Knight brought in outside advisors, people who had seen the ups and downs of the business world.
And what did they say?
They advised him that going public wasn't just an option. It was essential. if they wanted to solve their persistent cash flow problems and fuel future growth.
So it was a bit of a catch-22. They needed the influx of cash, but they were worried about losing control?
Exactly. It was a gamble. But Knight eventually realized that staying private would limit their potential. It was a tough decision, a real turning point for the company.
So they took the plunge. They went public in December 1980.
And it was a resounding success. The IPO raised over $3 million, giving them the capital they desperately needed.
That's incredible. It's like they went from driving a beat-up old car to suddenly having a high-performance sports car.
But even with this newfound success, Knight knew the journey wasn't over. The sportswear market was becoming incredibly competitive. New players were emerging all the time. He knew he had to stay ahead of the curve.
The pressure must have been immense. They had this influx of cash. They were growing rapidly. But they also knew that the landscape was constantly shifting.
He doubled down on what had gotten them this far: innovation. He pushed his team to constantly explore new materials, technologies, and designs, always striving to create the best possible products for athletes.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's about the product.
But it's also about the story. He knew they had to keep telling compelling stories.
And that's where Michael Jordan enters the picture.
Exactly. They signed a young, up-and-coming basketball player named Michael Jordan.
Ah, Michael Jordan. That's a legendary partnership. Did Knight know what a phenomenon Jordan would become?
It's hard to say if anyone could have predicted Jordan's global impact. But Knight recognized his talent and his charisma. This partnership wasn't just about athletic performance. It was about tapping into Jordan's star power and building a brand that resonated on a cultural level.
Like they weren't just selling shoes anymore. They were selling a piece of Michael Jordan's magic.
Precisely. And it worked brilliantly. Jordan's influence transcended sports. He became a global icon. And Nike became synonymous with excellence, pushing boundaries, achieving greatness.
It's amazing how one partnership can have such a massive impact on a brand's trajectory. But amidst all this success, Knight doesn't shy away from the more challenging aspects of the journey, does he?
Not at all. He reflects on the near misses, the doubts, the sacrifices made along the way.
It's refreshing. It reminds us that even behind these iconic brands, there are real people with struggles, setbacks, moments of vulnerability.
He even admits to a tinge of regret, wondering if some things could have been done differently. It's a reminder that even the most successful people are human, constantly learning and evolving.
It's a valuable lesson that even with all the success, there's always room for reflection and growth. But as we move into the latter part of Nike's journey, there's a particularly difficult chapter that we need to address.
You're talking about the controversy surrounding their labor practices.
Yes, the sweatshop accusations in the 1990s. That was a huge turning point, not just for Nike, but for the entire sportswear industry. How did Shoe Dog tackle that issue?
Knight doesn't shy away from the harsh realities. He acknowledges the shortcomings in their oversight, the mistakes that were made, and the pressure they faced to keep costs down in a globalized marketplace.
It was a complex issue with no easy answers, so how did Nike respond?
They faced immense public scrutiny. Protests. Boycotts. Knight describes feeling caught off guard, initially defensive, but eventually realizing that they needed to take responsibility and make substantial changes.
It wasn't just a PR problem, it was a moral reckoning.
Absolutely. And to their credit, they didn't just issue apologies, they took concrete steps to address the issues.
What kind of steps?
Stricter labor standards, investing in factory monitoring programs, collaborating with NGOs and human rights groups to improve working conditions across their supply chain.
That must have been a massive undertaking, especially given the scale of their global operations.
It was. And Knight admits it was a long and difficult process, one that's still ongoing. It forced them to examine their values, to redefine what success meant, and to grapple with the ethical complexities of doing business in a globalized world.
It's a crucial reminder that growth and success can't come at the expense of ethical practices.
Absolutely. And Knight reflects on this period with a mix of regret and determination. He acknowledges the mistakes that were made, but also emphasizes the steps they took to improve and become a more responsible company.
It's a valuable lesson in accountability and the importance of continuous improvement. It makes you wonder, though, with all the challenges, the near bankruptcies, the controversies, did Knight ever question whether it was all worth it?
He does. He grapples with that very question throughout the book. He reflects on the personal sacrifices he made, the toll it took on his family, the constant pressure and stress. But ultimately, he seems to believe that it was all part of the journey, that the lessons learned and the impact they made were worth the struggles.
That's a powerful realization. It speaks to the complexities of building a legacy, the balancing act between personal ambition and the impact you have on the world.
Hmm.
But, throughout the book, there's this recurring image that I found fascinating: the baseball mitt chair in Knight's office. What's the significance of that?
Yes. The well-worn baseball mitt chair, it's more than just furniture. It's a symbol of comfort, a tangible link to Knight's childhood, a place where he could retreat and find solace amidst the chaos of building a global empire.
It's like a grounding force, a reminder of simpler times before the pressures of running a multi-billion-dollar company.
Exactly. It's a testament to his humility, his ability to stay connected to his roots, despite achieving such extraordinary success. But even with all the triumphs, there's a hint of melancholy in Knight's final reflections.
What do you mean?
He expresses concern that America is losing its entrepreneurial spirit. He even cites a Harvard Business School study that ranked America's entrepreneurial spirit behind Peru.
Wow, that's a bit of a wake-up call. It makes you wonder, what does that mean for the future of innovation, especially in a world that's becoming more complex and competitive every day?
It's a question we all need to consider. How do we cultivate an environment where crazy ideas can flourish, where individuals are encouraged to take risks and pursue their passions, even when those passions might seem unconventional or even a little bit crazy?
It's like he's issuing a challenge to all of us.
To tap into that same drive, that willingness to defy the odds.
Because sometimes those crazy ideas turn into iconic brands, global movements, legacies that inspire generations.
Shoe Dog is a testament to that very notion. It's a story that reminds us that we all have the potential to create something extraordinary, to leave our mark on the world. All it takes is that first step, that leap of faith, that willingness to say, let's do this.
Knight's story really is a testament to that entrepreneurial spirit. He started with nothing but a crazy idea and a belief in himself.
And an incredible amount of hustle.
Oh, yeah. He faced countless obstacles, made mistakes, but never gave up on his vision.
And he surrounded himself with a team that shared that same drive, that same passion. That's something that really comes through in Shoe Dog.
Yeah, he talks about those early days at Nike. It was like a band of misfits united by this crazy idea.
They weren't afraid to challenge conventions, to push boundaries, and to embrace their own unique style.
You're talking about those butt-face meetings he describes.
Exactly. Those weekend retreats where they would hash out ideas, debate strategies, and basically push each other to be better.
Those meetings sounded equal parts intense and hilarious.
It's amazing how they maintain that scrappy, almost rebellious spirit,
Yeah.
even as they grew into this massive corporation.
It speaks to the importance of culture, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Knight understood that a company's culture is its DNA. It's what drives innovation, attracts talent, and ultimately shapes its destiny. And he was willing to fight to protect that culture, even as Nike grew and faced all these external pressures.
It's a great lesson for any entrepreneur or leader, really. Building a strong culture, one that encourages creativity and risk-taking, is just as important as having a great product or a solid business plan.
Couldn't agree more. And Shoe Dog is a fantastic case study in how to do that. It's not a formula or a step-by-step guide. It's this raw, honest account of the ups and downs, the triumphs and failures that go into building something truly remarkable.
It's a reminder that success isn't a straight line,
It's a messy, chaotic journey.
filled with unexpected twists and turns.
And sometimes those detours are what lead to the most rewarding destinations.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Shoe Dog, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
For me, it's the importance of embracing that crazy idea, that inner voice that whispers, what if? It's about nurturing that spark of possibility, that willingness to defy the odds and chase a dream that others might not understand.
Because sometimes those crazy ideas turn into iconic brands, global movements, legacies that inspire generations.
Shoe Dog is a testament to that very notion. It's a story that reminds us that we all have the potential to create something extraordinary, to leave our mark on the world.
All it takes is that first step, that leap of faith, that willingness to say, let's do this.
Beautifully put.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey through the world of Nike and the mind of Phil Knight. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and maybe even a little inspiration to chase your own crazy ideas.
And to remember that even a shoe dog can achieve extraordinary things.
Yeah. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive, where we'll continue to explore fascinating stories, uncover hidden insights, and spark those aha moments that make learning an adventure.